Right. Mhm. Okay. Okay, let's make sure we all have our masks up. Don't have any handouts today. Okay. Okay, so on Moodle this morning, I added a copy of our course schedule. So today we have August 25th. Normally I'd lecture on the safe food handler, but I'm pretty sure I did that on Monday. Does everybody agree with that? We didn't finish? Okay, all righty. Then we'll pick up from where? Okay, so I know we talked about hair restraints, wearing hats in the kitchen, beard restraints. If you have a really significant beard, most oftentimes if you have any beard and you're going through a food manufacturing plant, you'll have to wear a beard guard. Wearing clean clothing. You change into your uniform while you're at work, and then you keep dirty clothes, uniforms away from the food prep area. Our aprons, we take them off, leave them in the kitchen whenever we're leaving the prep area. Never ever take your apron into a restroom, because there's no place in the restroom that's going to be cleaned and sanitized. Never wipe your hands on your apron. Food handlers cannot wear jewelry, so anything on your hands and wrists needs to be removed before you start prepping with food. The only thing you can keep on is a plain band ring. Your medical bracelet has to come off. If you have a medical condition, you need to talk to your employer, make sure they're aware of what your condition is, and they would know what to do if you have a flare-up. You have to remove your watches. Other jewelry is required by your company. The requirements here are that all visible piercings have to be removed when you're working in the kitchen. You can wear earrings of a certain size when you're working as a server in the dining room. Okay. We talk about this, eating, drinking, smoking. You have to do that in a designated area. Usually it's like an employee lounge where you can go and eat. You can never eat, drink, smoke, chew gum, or tobacco whenever you are prepping or serving food, or if you're working in the food prep areas. Or if you're working in areas used to clean utensils and equipment. The place that I did my internship, there's a dishwasher who did daytime shift, and he had a pitcher of beer and an unlit cigar in his mouth the whole time he was washing dishes. So I was like totally against what you're supposed to do. Okay, some exceptions. Employees may drink from a correctly covered container. So the correctly covered container will include a lid with a straw or a sip lid top. You have to store these below the work surfaces. so that there's no chance that they're going to spill on your work surface or surface. Food may be tasted during prepping. In fact, you're going to want to taste your food during prepping. Use an approved utensil. We have disposable tasting spoons in the kitchen. You only use it one time. Does everybody know the term double dipping? Okay, that's taking your spoon and sticking it in your mouth and then sticking it into food again. Okay, we don't do that. Okay, reporting health issues. As a manager, you have to train your staff to tell you when the staff is sick. Be prepared to show proof that you have done this, such as a signed statement in which staff have agreed to report illnesses. So in our lab syllabi, we have a list of the symptoms and illnesses for which you cannot come to class. Documentation showing staff have completed training, which includes information on the importance of reporting illness. Poster signs or pocket cards that remind staff to notify managers when they are sick. Staff has to report illnesses before they come to work, ideally. Sometimes on your way to work or while you're working, you might get sick. So if you start feeling sick while you're at work, report that to your manager. You also have to let your manager know if you or someone you live with has been diagnosed with one of the following pathogens. The two viruses, norovirus and hepatitis A, and then the 4 bacteria, Shigella, E. coli, Salmonella typhi, and then what's the other one? Non-typhoidal. Okay, non-typhoidal salmonella. When food handlers are sick, as a manager, you may need to restrict them from working with exposed food, utensils, and equipment, but they may work in other areas. So they're not going to be able to work with washing dishes or putting away clean dishes. They're not going to be able to do anything where food is being prepped or where food is being stored. Or you may have to exclude them from coming into the operation. So they can't come into work at all if they have vomiting, diarrhea, jaundice, sore throat with fever, an infected wound or boil that is open or draining, unless it is properly covered. Watch for the symptoms that your staff may exhibit. If they're vomiting, if they're taking excessive trips to the restroom, if they start showing on yellowing of the skin, the eyes, or fingernails, if they've got cold sweats or chills, persistent nasal discharge and sneezing. So we have our if then. So if the food handler has an infected wound or boil that is not properly covered, restrict the food handler from working with exposed food, utensils, and equipment. So they can find another job that they can do that they're not going to be around food, utensils, and equipment. Or you could provide them with a proper way to cover and bandage their wound. If the food handler has a sore throat with a fever, okay, in a normal restaurant, you could have them do another job. They could be away from food, utensils and equipment, and doing another job. But if you work in a property that serves mainly high-risk populations, like a daycare center, nursing home, hospital, they can't be in there at all. But then in either case, they've got to go to a doctor and get an excuse from the doctor that will, or a release from the doctor that's going to allow them to come back to work. And as a manager, you need to make sure that they do that. Okay, if food handler has persistent sneezing, coughing, runny nose, with discharges from the eyes, nose, or mouth, we restrict them from working with food, utensils, equipment. If the food handler has one of these symptoms from an infectious condition, vomiting, diarrhea, or jaundice, and there's lots of ways of looking at this, you're always going to exclude these people from your operation. Employees with vomiting and diarrhea have to have no symptoms for at least 24 hours or a written release from a medical practitioner. Jaundice, somebody starts exhibiting jaundice and they haven't been diagnosed, you have to exclude them from the operation, and more importantly, you have to report it to the health department. And then before that employee is allowed to return to work, they have to have permission from both their medical practitioner and approval from the local health department. Okay. Anybody who's been diagnosed with one of these are our big six pathogens, the 4 bacteria, and these are not in the same order, but so the 4 bacteria would be Shigella, Salmonella, E. coli, and Salmonella typhi, and then the 2 viruses are norovirus and hepatitis A. So anybody diagnosed with any one of those has to be excluded from the operation and reported to the local health department. And then before they can come back to work, you have to work with both their medical practitioner and the health department. Okay. So now we have finished the safe food handler. Any questions on that? Okay, so now we're going to have a practice review. Here we are. Okay, so which food item has been associated with Salmonella typhi? The choices are beverages, produce, shellfish from contaminated water, and undercooked ground beef. C, shellfish from contaminated water. Anybody else agree with that? You do? Okay. This is chapters 1, 2, and 3 review. Okay. Which practice can help prevent allergic reactions? Using parchment paper when baking cookies, cooking different food types in the same oil, identifying the ingredients for customers, or providing home delivery service. B is in boy? No, C is in cat. Okay, C is in cat. Okay, what symptom can indicate a customer is having an allergic reaction? Okay. If I click one and you don't agree, let me know. Where should a food handler wash his or her hands after prepping food? C, designated sink for hand washing. That makes sense. What is the most important tool you can use to prevent time temperature abuse? C. There's question 5. What should food handlers do after prepping food and before using the restroom? C. Take off their aprons. When should a food handler with a sore throat and fever be excluded from the operation? C. A food handler comes to work with diarrhea. What should the food manager tell them to do? C. Well, there's a lot of C's in here, and they're supposed to be coming up in random order. What should a food handler do to make gloves easier to put on? Okay, B, select the correct size gloves. Pardon me? I understand that. Yeah, we're gonna review all of this so that we'll make sure that we answered the correct answers. But yeah, that's definitely a case. When can a food handler diagnosed with jaundice return to work? B. Which item is a potential physical contaminant? What is the purpose of hand antiseptic? D. What symptom requires a food handler to be excluded from the operation? What should food handlers do after leaving and then returning to the prep area? B. Okay. Which organization includes inspecting food as one of its primary responsibilities? A. Do we have any type of consensus on this? Somebody's saying B. I've heard people say A. Okay, let's do this. Raise your hand if you think it's A. If you think it's B. Okay. If you think it's C. If you think it's D. Okay, by a slight margin, D seems to have it. We're going to redo it. Which strategy can prevent cross-contamination? A? Everybody's saying A? I heard an answer that wasn't A. It's not C or D. So it's A or B. So what are we going to put down? What is cross-contamination?
Well, why would you want to prepare it at the same time? Why would you want to
raw chicken and I go touch strawberries? That would probably.
Yeah, you're cooking raw food and ready seafood at the same time, though.
We're not saying that that answer is correct. We're still discussing whether it's A or B.
It's A.
Well, I think.
Raise your hand if you think it's A.
I never said it.
Raise your hand if you think it's B. Okay. It's definitely one of those four. Example of a physical contaminant. Local nursing home has a yearly barbecue for its residents. Which food items should not be served? B as in boy? D as in dog. We agree? Okay, of the big six pathogens, 4 of them are bacteria, so you have to read all 4 of these and figure out which are the 4 bacteria. Okay, so I'm hearing C. What must a food handler with an infected hand wound do to work safely with food? B? C. Okay. What condition promotes the growth of bacteria? Well, I wanted to give everybody time to read all 4 choices, instead of finding one that you like and jumping on it.
Well, no, you told us like on the second day.
Okay. 5 common food handling mistakes that can cause foodborne illness include practicing poor personal hygiene, holding food at incorrect temperatures, purchasing food from unsafe sources, and you're reading faster than most people, so what must food handlers do when handling ready-to-eat food? Okay. Parasites are commonly associated with what food? I don't know what letter. What's a
B as in boy.
B as in boy? Okay. When must a food handler change gloves? It's B. With 26, what should a server do when taking a food order from customers who have concerns about food allergies? B as in boy? And then fecal oral route of contamination is when or appendectomy. Okay, so we're going to finish the attempt. Tell us our submit all and finish. So the only one we missed is the first one. Okay, so the one we missed, food associated with Salmonella typhi. What is the main source of Salmonella typhi? Pardon me? No, answer the question. What is the main source of Salmonella typhi? Not on this list. So what does it say above that?
That's what it says above it.
Okay. The main source of this is people who are infected with this.
People with type of.
Right, okay. So it's going to be something that they handle. And so the correct answer here is beverages. For Salmonella typhi. Okay. Do we need to review all of the other ones? I think we did pretty well also. So if this were a real exam, it'd be really difficult to score. If there were 28 questions, you could miss as many as 6 and still have 75%. However, when you take this exam, it is not a group exam, it's an individual exam, and you won't be able to use your notebooks or laptops or, yes. What day is the exam? Friday, October 1st. Yeah, after the exam, you don't come to class. You will know immediately upon completing the exam whether you pass or fail. And then once everybody in the group finishes their exams, I'll be able to come back to this building and get the actual number grade. If you score above a 65%, I will let you, for a cost of $30 for the new access code, retake the exam. If you score below 65%, I'm going to ask you to come back and take the class again. which also involves qualifying the exam access. You already, well, if you bought the textbook already, you have the exam access code.
I know I'm saying, but if you fail it the second time and then you tell us to come back and take it, that's $6, but.
Right, every time you have to retake it, it will be another $30.
But when we come back.
You're limited to 4 times in a calendar year to actually attempt taking the exam.
I would have to come back like the second semester, and we take the whole class.
No, because I'm not gonna let you take the exam that many times. I would, like what typically would happen on October 1st, let's say that, 5 people don't pass the exam. If they scored above 65%, then I'll let them retake as soon as possible because they're gonna have a better idea, it's gonna be fresher in your mind. If you score below the 65%, we have a session B section of this class that meets at the exact same time that this one does. And then I would ask you to retake the exam, or retake the class, sit through the lectures. Yes.
I hear from a lot of different people, I'm more like, in the restaurant, you don't have to wear gloves.
You don't have to wear gloves if you are prepping food that is going to be cooked to the proper temperature. When it's already been cooked, I guess you have to wear gloves. Because if it's not going to be cooked any further, like if you're carving, working a carving station, you're just gonna carve and give to people, you have to wear gloves. Okay, yeah. Produce or a salad bar, so if you're working prepping those things, that's a ready-to-eat TCS food. So yes, you have to wear your gloves when you're handling them. If you're just washing, like cases and cases of salad, you can wash your hands first, and then you don't have to wear gloves while you're washing the lettuce. Any other questions? This is good because a lot of people don't ask any questions.
I know, well, I don't wanna go to somebody else, but when I worked in Canaan, when we used to eliminate our pump the sauce, nobody really wore gloves.
So how did you make the lemonade?
You have to get the lemon, you have to cut the lemon, and you have to squeeze the lemon.
Okay, so you're cutting and squeezing lemons. Um, yeah. Yeah, you really should be wearing gloves for that.
It's like you don't need to like the lemon is just the lemon. Yeah. And then the pump sauce, like you can't put sauce, the finger would go in the sauce.
Is it an electric machine or is it a press that you do?
Electrical machine.
Okay. All right, any other questions?